Tom Brady's story is one of those rare sports tales that sounds almost too unbelievable to be true. He's hailed as the greatest quarterback in NFL history, the owner of records that seems untouchable, and the man who led two different franchises to Super Bowl glory. But the path he traveled to reach those unprecedented heights was filled with close calls, overlooked talent, and controversies that nearly derailed his reputation. If you think you've heard it all, hold on, because there's more to the Brady legend than those polished highlights. From the start, Tom Brady wasn't destined to be a football prodigy in the eyes of most scouts. Growing up just 20 miles outside San Francisco, he was an ardent fan of the 49ers, watching Joe Montana perform football miracles at Candlestick Park. As a kid, he'd go to games in awe of Montana's poise under pressure, never imagining he'd someday eclipse his hero's iconic status. What few people realize is that Brady struggled immensely in his earliest days on the field. He couldn't even start for his high school's JV team, a squad that failed to record a single victory, or even score a touchdown. By all accounts, he seemed destined to remain a bench warmer. Yet something about that experience lit a fire within him. The moment he finally got a chance to replace an injured starter, he seized it. That invisible quality, call it grit, call it tenacity, would become his defining trait. But high school success didn't arrive overnight, and Brady still had to battle the doubts of those who saw him as a long shot. He was a solid baseball player too, capable of batting left-handed with real power. Scouts from Montreal Expos took note, intrigued enough to draft him in the later rounds. Some young athletes might have seen a pro baseball contract as the fastest ticket to fame. Not Brady. Instead of signing with the Expos, he took a risk by heading to the University of Michigan to compete for a spot as a college quarterback. That decision would set the stage for a series of uphill fights that came to characterize his career. Once at Michigan, Brady's struggles didn't let up. He spent his first season redshirted, and then sat behind established starters in subsequent years. The chatter on campus was that he'd never see meaningful playing time, and the tension got so thick he sought counseling to keep his motivation alive. In his junior year, he finally became the starter, but was forced to split snaps with another hotshot quarterback, Drew Henson. Imagine going into every game not knowing if you'd play the second half. Yet the adversity sharpened him. Whenever he was in, he made the most of each drive, each pass, each chance to prove himself. By his senior season, he engineered stunning comebacks that made fans realize how reliable he was in a crunch time. From beating Penn State in the dying minutes to orchestrating a last-second win over Ohio State, Brady displayed a resilience beyond simple stats. With that, he closed out his college career by leading Michigan to an overtime triumph in the Orange Bowl. But even those heroics only did so much to impress NFL scouts. When draft day rolled around in 2000, team after team brushed off the tall, lanky quarterback who wasn't known for a cannon arm or blazing speed. He slipped deeper than anyone with his track record should have, waiting until the 199th overall pick to hear his name. Some have called this the biggest oversight in NFL draft history. But back then, it just validated the doubts swirling around Brady. He went to the New England Patriots as a fourth-string signal caller, buried on the depth chart behind veteran Drew Bledsoe and others. For a rookie who just a year ago was orchestrating Big Ten comebacks, sitting on the sidelines with almost no prospects for starting time could have felt like an insurmountable dead end. But Brady's perspective was different. Every disappointment, every no, every slight was just another challenge to overcome. His moment arrived in 2001 under dramatic circumstances. Drew Bledsoe suffered a serious injury early in the season, and Brady stepped onto the field for the first time as a real NFL quarterback. New England fans might not have known much about him then, but soon they would. Brady led the Patriots to an 11-3 run in his 14 starts, guiding them all the way to the Super Bowl against the heavily favored St. Louis Rams. In the biggest game of his life, he showed a calm, clinical precision that stunned everyone. When the confetti settled on that 20-17 victory, the legend of Tom Brady was officially born. On paper, you'd think that was the pinnacle, an underdog who defied the odds to become a champion. Yet for Brady, it was only the beginning. Despite a bump in the road the following season, Brady was far from a one-hit wonder. He made sure no one would call him a flash in the pan by delivering back-to-back Super Bowl championships in 2003 and 2004. That kind of repeat success is practically unheard of in modern football. and it catapulted the Patriots into a dynasty. But it wasn't all smooth sailing. With visibility came scrutiny, and soon the whispers of unfair tactics grew louder. Spygate rocked the Patriots organization, leading to accusations that coaching staffers taped opponents' signals. Brady's name was tangled in the controversy. Even if it was primarily a coaching decision, the stigma lingered, and years later, Deflategate reared its head. Reporters and fans claimed the Patriots had tampered with football air pressure to gain an illegal advantage, pointing their fingers straight at Brady. Although the incident ignited fiery debates, many calling it an overblown scandal, Brady's pristine image took a hit. Yet in every controversy, he responded by returning to the field with the same grit that first propelled him from a bench warmer to a college starter. In many ways, these scandals pushed him even harder, as if proving doubters wrong had become his personal mission. The truly jaw-dropping part is how many times he's proven those doubters wrong in dramatic fashion. Consider the 28-3 comeback in Super Bowl 51, facing the Atlanta Falcons. Brady's Patriots were in a deep hole later in the third quarter. A 25-point deficit that would have broken most teams didn't faze him. Methodically, he marched the offense downfield, orchestrating drive after drive that drained the Falcons' morale. The moment the game hit overtime, the entire world felt the momentum shift. Brady completed pass after pass, culminating in an improbable 34-28 victory. It was a night that turned cynics into believers once again. In a single game, he redefined the idea of comeback, adding one more chapter to his ever-expanding legend. If his time in New England had ended right there, no one could argue about his greatness. Yet 2 more Super Bowl trips followed, including a victory over the Los Angeles Rams. By the time he exited the Patriots, he'd left behind a legacy that felt nearly impossible to replicate. 20 seasons, 6 rings, and an unparalleled display of leadership. But there was still one more shock in store. On March 20th, 2020, Tom Brady joined the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, a franchise known more for disappointments than dynasties. People debated whether this was a last gasp for an aging quarterback, or if he could conjure magic in a new city. Early in that first season with Tampa, the experiment looked shady. Miscommunication on offense, a coach who was unafraid to publicly critique him, and a tough schedule that had critics sharpening their knives. But true to form, when the stakes rose, Brady's performance elevated. The Buccaneers snuck into the playoffs, then overcame a series of road games against legendary quarterbacks Drew Brees and Aaron Rodgers. Their reward was a Super Bowl matchup with Kansas City, the reigning champs led by the electric Patrick Mahomes. In a game that was supposed to symbolize a changing of the guard, Brady put on a masterclass in efficiency and calm under pressure, leading the Bucs to a resounding 31-9 triumph. Super Bowl ring number 7 was his, and it was no longer a question of whether he was the greatest quarterback of all time. Many started calling him the greatest player in the history of the sport, period. From the outside, that triumph in Tampa seemed like the perfect Hollywood ending, but rumors and controversies kept swirling, including questions about how long he'd keep playing, speculation about friction in his personal life, and the eventual announcement of his retirement, followed by a reversal, followed by another announcement. That unmatched longevity alone would be enough to stoke debate for decades. Some called him unstoppable, others suggested he benefited from a system, or that controversies had tainted his spotless veneer. Yet, whether you love him or hate him, there's no denying the scale of what he's accomplished. For many fans, the real fascination lies in this collision of contradictions. He's the humble 6th-round pick who transformed into an icon, the soft-spoken leader who became the center of controversies, and the aging athlete who somehow grew stronger as the years piled on. There's a certain mystique in how he keeps pushing boundaries, as though the normal rules of athletic decline don't apply to him. Despite retirement announcements and new business ventures, whispers persist about whether he could pop up in another roster if the right opportunity arises. With Brady, the idea of a final farewell feels forever incomplete, perhaps because he has a habit of reappearing when the narrative demands it most. All told, Tom Brady has authored a script that's more complex than a typical feel-good sports movie. Sure, he's beloved by millions for his string of championships, but he's also generated his fair share of detractors who believe the controversies overshadow his accomplishments. In a sense, that tension is what keeps the conversation about Brady so electrifying. One can't discuss his legend without touching on Deflategate, or the ways in which NFL rules appeared to evolve around the passing game during his tenure. It raises the question, would any other quarterback in history have maintained the same level of success under that level of scrutiny? Or is it simply that Brady's psyche, forged through years of rejection and underrated status, developed an unbreakable armor? Either way, his career urges us to look past the trophies and analyze the unique blend of skill, strategy, timing, and endurance that made it all possible. And that's where Tom Brady's mystique truly shines. He's both the unstoppable champion and the perpetual underdog, an impossible combination. Maybe that's what makes the conversation about him so endless. Even after the final whistle on his playing days, debates about his place in sports history rage on, fueled by a career that stretched 2 full decades and across 2 different franchises. In the end, Tom Brady's story transcends football. It's about a relentless pursuit of something far bigger than what most people set out to achieve. He took every doubt, every controversy, every improbable scenario, and used them like blocks in a tower that kept climbing higher. Whether you see him as an unrivaled competitor, a controversial figure, or the improbable hero who refused to quit, there's no denying one thing: he's forever altered how we talk about greatness. If the measure of a legend is how long people continue to debate and dissect your feats, then Tom Brady has carved out a place that may never be equaled.